Perhaps one of the best-known and well-respected doctors in America today is Dr. Mehmet Oz. Oz is a professor of cardiac surgery at Columbia University and the founder of the complementary medicine program at New York's Presbyterian Hospital. Dr. Oz predicts that the future of energy medicine has arrived.
I think that energy and the use of energy in healing will be the biggest frontier in medicine over the next decade. And the reason for that is you think about a cell and what defines life at the level of a cell, it's all about the energy on the inside and the outside being different. That's what defines life. So I understand if you put the cells together into an organ and aggregate the organs into a body should have energy. But because we can't measure that in medicine, we've been hesitant to think about tapping into it.
But Dr. Oz is tapping into that belief.
I'm about to take you far outside the realm of traditional medicine. Take a look at this. These are people who are spending up to $600 to experience a new twist on energy medicine. It's called Reconective Healing. The man behind it, controversial chiropractor Dr. Eric Pearl. His patients call him the miracle healer. But there are also plenty of people who insist he's a fraud and it's a hoax. As a doctor, I've seen things in my own practice that challenge what we know about how the body can heal. So I wanted to investigate further.
See if we can bring them up a little. Bring your elbows out.
Deepak Chopra and Dr. Wayne Dyer have endorsed his methods. Thousands flock to his seminars. The New York Times calls him an up-and-coming force to be reckoned with. Dr. Eric Pearl.
You'll see the movement in his eyes.
The controversial chiropractor behind the controversial therapy, Reconective Healing.
We're not doing it through the physical adjustment of the spine. We're allowing this vibratory sense to take over.
How does it work? His patients claim that Dr. Pearl has cured them of everything from chronic fatigue to cancer without ever touching them. He claims he can heal people using only light frequency and energy. He says he discovered this astounding ability by accident.
A psychic who just seemed incredible. He had me choose some cards, and he looks at me, he looks at the cards, he looks at me, he goes, "What is it that you do?" I said, "I'm a chiropractor." He said, "Oh no, it's much more than that. Something is coming through your hands. Healings are happening."
On his website, his patients claim the healing has been nothing short of miraculous.
I woke up one day and realized the right side of my face couldn't move.
I had very, very limited range of motion in my left shoulder.
I started having massive pain every single time I ate.
While I was having my healing session, I was moving my face in places I couldn't move it.
Dr. Pearl asked me to extend my hand. He started working around it. A couple of minutes later, my arm went all the way up above my head for the first time in 25 years.
My healing was absolutely a miracle.
But what's really going on? Is this true healing or just a placebo effect? Is Dr. Pearl a pioneer in healing, or as his critics claim, a fraud? Many of my colleagues in the medical community would never consider this therapy, but I think it's important to have this difficult conversation because I realize many of you are looking for healing outside the doctor's office. This is the only place to have that conversation. So Eric, what is Reconective Healing? How does it work?
Reconective healing is considered to be a level of healing that we can each learn to access, and as I teach people how to do it, to become healthcare professionals to bring it into your communities.
You heal folks with some pretty severe diseases without medications, without the more conventional approaches that we take. Do you think that's safe? Do you worry about the ethics of it?
People have healings when they interact with this level of consciousness. What seems to be happening is that this brings us into a state of balance that allows our imbalances, including our health challenges, to vibrate out of our systems, of our lives. I can't think of anything safer or more desirable than this. Now, I want to be clear. Reconective healing does some phenomenal things, but it is always advised that you continue with your medical treatment to be evaluated by your doctor.
So if I understand this correctly, and I'm still getting my arms around it, what you're practicing is a form of energy medicine. I understand there are many different disciplines. These have been around for centuries. Reiki, many of you have heard of, therapeutic touch. It's been researched in laboratories. I actually have used this in my patients in the hospital. And I do think that it has a role for folks who have pains and stresses. I don't know about the more significant ailments. So what kinds of health issues have you had success with?
I have seen things that I considered up until now to be impossible. This is part of how I discovered what this was. I've seen someone who had a hole in their foot the size of a pencil eraser for 9 years, gone overnight. I've seen children with cerebral palsy and epilepsy able to walk, run, play, speak normally, not have seizures any longer, not need their medications. Patients have come in showing laboratory results where cancer tumors had vanished. People were gaining the use of arms and legs, vision and hearing. Now, just as with medicine, nothing is 100%. It doesn't mean that 100% of the people will receive 100% the same response. But also, just as with medicine, when you have a statistically significant number of these dramatic healings, well, it's a little hard to feel the need to bury your head in the sand.
You say statistically significant, but these are big illnesses you're talking. Epilepsy.
Yeah, they are.
Millions of Americans plagued by this cancer, second leading cause of death. I looked for evidence of how this could work. I want to believe it, like probably everyone does, that we can actually bring healing to us in this way. Intuitively sort of think there's something there, but I can't find any data. I can't find evidence that Western-trained doctors would acknowledge is real.
I've trained over 70, maybe about 75,000 people around the world. A good 20% of them, meaning a good 15,000, are mainstream healthcare practitioners, doctors, nurses, physical therapists. This is in hospitals now as well as in private practices.
All right. So Dr. Philip Ralidis is joining us today. You have some experience with reconnective healing. I'd like to hear your story.
My wife and I first got introduced to Eric when we heard that he was coming into Austin, where we lived at the time. And we thought we'd bring our youngest son, Brian, to visit him. Brian was born prematurely, has cerebral palsy. And despite pretty extensive physical therapy through the years, he had made very modest gains. So we went up to the hotel room, and Dr. Pearl walked in, had never met us, never met Brian, and was basically doing his no-touch therapy for a period of time, during which time Brian was very happy. And after which, we asked, well, okay, what just happened? Well, my wife suggested we have Brian walk down the hall to show Eric his normal gait. Now, Brian had a toe gait with his left foot. He had very weak body musculature, so he'd lean to the left. His arms are held upward in a pose to try to initiate some balance. And as we had Brian walk down the hall, my wife was almost upset and yelling. I said, wait a minute, Brian, show Dr. Pearl how you walk. And it dawned on us that he was walking almost normally. And this is, again, something we couldn't explain, but it was there. It was, without any doubt, exhibited in a physical form that we could not deny.
And is he walking okay now?
He's got some limp still, but he's gone through growth spurts. He's much better than he was before.
And they didn't tell him what to anticipate or what to expect, of course, for this 5-year-old. So it's certainly, you couldn't call it a placebo effect or anything like that.
Dr. Peterson, a well-respected internist, you actually do believe in the mind-body connection, but not in reconnective healing. Why is that?
Well, I do think this is a tough one to swallow. I am open to the idea of alternative medicine. I recommend things like massage therapy and acupuncture to my patients regularly. However, I do have my doubts about reconnective healing simply because, as you mentioned earlier, there is very limited research.
Why is that? I mean, it is remarkable that you haven't collected 75,000 doctors or nurses and healers. Why we don't have hundreds of examples of this working that are in a group that the Dr. Petersons of the world, the Dr. Oz's of the world can say, oh my goodness, this stuff really works. We generally look at journals and read the articles out of there. And I'm not going to belabor this point. I just think without
I understand.
Dr.
You want to
Peterson's
see more peer-reviewed journal studies than there already are.
Otherwise,
and so far there are only about 5 or 6 peer-reviewed journal studies. So you're right. It's increasing over time. I'm teaching this work. I can't get out there and head study and research too, but hopefully people will develop the interest to want to do more research on it.
Well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to look at someone. We're going to put Eric to the test. We're going to ask him to evaluate someone from our audience who has never met you before,
Sure.
you don't know about, who says she's been suffering in pain for years. Stay with us. Eric says there are 2 steps to balance your body's energy that you can do at home right now. The first step is to develop energy awareness by activating our hands. I want everyone in the audience to just get your hands, put them together. Everyone at home, put the stuff down, turn off the stove, and just follow with us for just 5 minutes. So,
okay, so we're going to play with this. Here's what I'll do. So, Dr. Oz, with your hands, I'm going to just come in between them for a moment to give myself a chance to feel and just to bring a sense of awareness to you, because awareness, consciousness, is our key. We're becoming more conscious beings. Now, for imagination, I want you to imagine, hold your fingers nice and crisp and firm. Now, imagine that there's a rubber band attaching to your 2 palms. I want you to sort of pull or stretch that rubber band a little bit. And just use your imagination. Just pretend if you want to, but keep your eyes open. Obviously, the stronger we pull at a rubber band, the stronger it pulls in reverse. We resist it. So now, feel, find the sensation, move your hands maybe in a circular pattern to see if it becomes a little stronger in one place or another, and stretch it. You want to feel for it until you can allow yourself to imagine it and stretch it. Are you getting a sensation when you do this?
I do. I felt it in the very beginning especially.
Great.
It's sort of tingling.
The more you stretch it apart, the more you're able to feel it. You keep your fingers crisp like this. Now, a way to play with this is take your hands like this and imagine that there's a ping pong ball in your right hand. Flip the ping pong ball up, follow the trajectory, and allow it to just feel the weight land in your left hand. Flip it up, allow it to land in your right hand. A second way is to now move that awareness beyond your body. So you can leave your hands up if you want, or you can let them down. And imagine that there's a little, remember pinball machines?
Yes.
You have a little pinball and you play it and the ball would bounce around. So imagine that little pinball bouncing around in your body inside. Feel it in your calf. Feel it in your thigh.
So this is the second step. We're actually tapping into the energy flowing throughout the body.
We're bringing our awareness out of our hands, just our hands, and into our bodies. Because what we're learning to do is we're learning to listen with a second sense. We're learning to feel in a different way a greater awareness. And as we do, our consciousness expands. This can sound silly. I know sometimes a question will come up and someone will say, how do you know this is not placebo? But obviously people who have had surgeries and other things, when they're able to walk and talk again, well, it's not placebo because it's not mind over matter. But our minds are important in the beginning to raise our awareness to how we can move this throughout our body. You don't even need to take your hands to do self-healing around the body.
Let me ask you, just show of hands. Who felt a little something when they held their hands that way? So there's some folks in the audience. It's interesting, actually. And I think if I could just speak in general on this theme, and this is my bottom line.
Sure.
There are 2 things. One is Eric's approach, and the second part of my discussion is energy healing, because they're not exactly the same, but they're related. I can't validate your unique approach. I can only speak to energy healing. And energy healing I have used in my life. I've defined it in many different ways in my own mind. Think of it as life through energy. And I've seen energy healing play an important role in medicine and in helping people through difficult times. So my advice to everybody is keep your eyes and your mind open.
Hi, my name is Dr. Eric Pearl. I'm the author of a book called The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. It's an international bestseller in over 36 languages, and it teaches you how to access reconnective healing, a new level of healing that many people feel maybe here on the planet for the very first time. Reconnective healing is a level of healing that takes us beyond energy healing techniques, into a spectrum of energy, light, and information that many of the scientists say is turning the laws of physics upside down and inside out. And it allows us to access healings not only for ourselves, but to facilitate healings for others as well, that are often fairly instantaneous and often tend to be life-lasting. Reconnective healing doesn't treat anything because it's healing. It's not treatment. It's not therapy. It's not a cure. So it doesn't address a symptom. Instead, what it does is something far more vast. It brings us, the human being, back into an optimal state of balance. And in this state of balance, our imbalances vibrate out. In other words, you could say that we're simply removing any interference in the way of allowing the body to heal itself and to function in its optimal capacity. Reconnective healing is a hands-off form of healing. If you were going to receive a reconnective healing session, you would find a practitioner in your area. You would make an appointment to see them, for example. You would probably take off your shoes and lie comfortably on your back, maybe on a massage table. The practitioner would come in with their hands. They would begin to access this more comprehensive field of healing energy, lighted information. You might feel various different sensations in your bodies: pushing, pulling, tingling, warmth, coolness, wetness, dryness. You might hear sounds. You might smell fragrances of flowers you've never smelled before, see colors you had never seen before. You feel wonderful sensations vibratory within your body. Your heart wave changes, your brain wave changes, your energy emissions change. Even the light emanating from your DNA vibrates at a higher, more coherent level. And somehow, this return to a state of balance allows your imbalances to vibrate out of the system, allows you, in essence, to have the healing that is most appropriate for you. It might not be the healing you anticipate. It's the one that's most appropriate for you in your life course. So as I often say, if you're fortunate, you'll have the healing you come in looking for. If you're truly fortunate, you'll have a healing you haven't even dreamed of, one that the universe has designed specifically for you.